What's the spark of many questions have been posed in life. What am I even saying? Take two. Many questions have been posed in life, some very abstract, some very simple. One that obviously gets brought up a lot is, what is the meaning of happiness? What is true happiness? And that question isn't really that hard to solve. It's Saturday morning cartoons, coming back home from school, sitting down with a snack, and putting on your favorite superhero show, or your favorite anime, whatever that may be, just sitting down, relaxing, and basically not having a care in the world. For me personally, I always watched Batman the Animated Series, Spectacular Spider-Man, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, The Avengers, Justice League, Batman Beyond, Static Shock. Camera still rolling? Talking too much? Okay. These characters and these worlds are very much attached to us, right? They were with us in the most formative years of our lives, so because of that, we are always going to be attached to them. If you watch a show enough times and it's a good adaptation, you're going to realize certain key traits here and there that make the character who they are, if you are media literate. That is a dying form of intelligence these days if you look at any sort of social media, but in general, you're going to know how these characters act, the way they move, what is natural and what is unnatural. These cartoons were the foundation of our love of just stories in general, right? Maybe we moved on to other things, but at the end of the day, we always find our way back here in the superhero realm in one way or another. I was so enamored by this, in fact, that I actually started to read the source material. I was like, you know what? I need more. And I feel like if I do read more, I'm gonna get these characters at their best form. I'm gonna read about stories that the big Hollywood producers on top are too scared to send out in the wild because they don't know if the common audience will find it good, right? I like seeing risks taken that might not pay off, might somewhat pay off, or is a full home run, something that you can't really experiment with for big budget Hollywood movies because they want to make sure that the ideas that they put forward actually break even. But when you read these comic books, you might see the character that you saw on screen perfectly translated. You might see some changes here and there, but if you read enough times, you're going to notice that your favorite character will get mischaracterized. There is going to be a character assassination here or there, and it's going to ruin your character for that era. If the story is very influential and a lot of people read it, it might even carry on past the initial release cycle, and you're going to be stuck with a character that you feel like is completely unrecognizable. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the worst character assassinations of all time. Character assassinations that, in my opinion, change the whole perspective, the whole way that people actually look at the character. Diehard comic book fans think that these characters suck or there's a problem with them because of these stories. And writers going forward kind of stuck with it, and that just made the prophecy of that character acting in this certain way actually come true, because yeah, that might have been a singular moment that's like, oh, this writer just messed up this one time. If enough writers write them in this way, or it just continuously happens in like tie-ins or whatever, if there's enough material of the character acting this way, people are going to consider it as fact. It is complete canon, we can't call it a one-off. And in this video, we're going to talk about my personal ones, the ones that I've read and I got really heated about. Leave yours down below in the comments, because the thing about character assassinations and this topic in general, it can go on forever, right? There is no stopping bad comic writers from writing doo-doo garbage. It is the way how it is. But yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into the video. I'm going to speak for everybody, okay? I know a lot of people say don't speak for me. I'm just going to say it. For the most part, we all like friendly discussions and debates about our favorite characters. But for some characters, it can become very wishy-washy because people tend to focus on certain storylines that you just don't think are important enough, because it kind of mischaracterizes them. And the one character that I see this happening to a lot is Iron Man, because of the Civil War event by Mark Millar. And I don't even know why that storyline got as popular as it is. Maybe because the concept is very novel and it kind of links to like world history, but with superheroes in the modern era. I guess that is why people are so drawn towards it. And that is why a movie was made. The idea, conceptually, it's really cool, but in practice, the execution was lacking a lot because a lot of the characters weren't very in character. But when it comes to Iron Man, before we get into that, what would the thesis of that character be? If you were able to put something on his head, what would that be? Who is Iron Man? Well, in my opinion, Iron Man can be broken down into a futurist trying to do what's right. He's trying to kind of like precog, think of all these different things that could happen in the future and plan accordingly. He's trying to protect us against certain calamities that could happen by thinking ahead. That is who Iron Man is, but in Civil War, he took that to the next step to basically becoming a tyrant. And the character shift was so sudden and out of nowhere that I don't even know how anyone could come to this conclusion, specifically because of how he previously acted, but we'll get to that in a bit. So, Iron Man in Civil War, he was the main blind supporter for the Superhuman Registration Act. And if you don't know, it's basically the government telling superheroes they have to register because being unsupervised leads to a lot of destruction. And the inciting incident that made the government kind of push this so quickly is the New Warriors. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a team of young heroes trying to fight and get rid of a guy named Nitro who could blow up and basically become a nuke. And that did happen during his arrest. It ended up killing probably 100,000 people, maybe more. And it looked very bad on the superhero's part. This was the only way. And in the name of peace, I have to do this. And you might be asking yourself, what did he do in the name of peace? Well, he created a prison in the negative zone to place heroes, people that really sacrificed and put their life on the line multiple times, ended up going into a prison that's worse than a prison. Think the Phantom Zone from DC. I can't even say worse because the Phantom Zone is kind of trash, but like think of it as that level, putting heroes that are very noble, who fought the good fight, and putting them in prison, my guy. That is horrible. He then cloned Thor, and that ended up killing Black Goliath, a hero in the field who saved lives, and I'm pretty sure he is dead to this day. That man is deader than any sort of sidekick that ended up dying because of a phone call. Like, seriously, Iron Man led to the permanent death of a hero. He would never do this. He recruits villains like Bullseye and Venom to fight on his behalf to detain these heroes. But at the same time, these guys are villains. Why are you letting them on your side, even if they're a part of the registration? It's so hypocritical how you're willing to put them on your side, but at the same time, you're willing to do crazy stuff to the heroes. On top of that, he manipulates Peter to like unmasking publicly, and that led to Aunt May almost dying, right? He's trying to be somebody who can protect everybody through placing certain precautions. He was always arrogant and pragmatic, but this takes it to the next level, full-blown fascist territory. He betrays his friends. He's kind of like Dr. Doom. He looks at people as assets, like literal chess pieces to move across the board. He tries to get rid of privacy in the name of peace. He becomes more hyper-logical, and it really alienates a lot of longtime fans because this is not who he is. If you look at like previous stories, like, I don't know, let's look at Armor Wars. In Armor Wars, which was really interesting, is that he went rogue against the government, and the government were using his tech, they were misusing his Iron Man designs, and he rebelled. He went against them. He was like, dude, we can't do this. Even if it meant going against S.H.I.E.L.D., he was like, this isn't the right way to go, and he fought against them. He really distrusted government bureaucracy. Any sort of government oversight, he was not about it because he was previously involved in the government pushing certain weapons here and there to kill people unceremoniously, and it just didn't sit right with him. In Civil War, compare it to that, right? He essentially becomes the system that he once fought against. What are we doing here? And The Crossing, a storyline that a lot of people hated when he really became a true, full-blown villain, quote-unquote, right? This obviously got changed, but he became a villain. He was on his Captain America Secret Empire arc. This man said Hail Hydra in his own technological way. But then, they had the common decency to say that this was Kang's influence. Going back to him cloning Thor, he did that without his permission to the point that when Thor came back, he had to body this man. He had to put the paws on him because he was out of pocket. When Peter had the gall to be mad at him, he almost ended up killing him when he betrayed him. Huh? Like, I don't see, like, it doesn't make any sense. The logic, the 2 and 2, putting it together, it's just not there. For being one of the smartest men in the world, you would think you would have some sort of way to read the room and to actually recall the things that he fully thought of in the past. He had a different way of thinking, but that went straight into the ground when Civil War occurred. And why it hurts so much, when he fought against Captain America, we saw the chain break completely. It wasn't like a Captain America Civil War event in the film where you could see that they still didn't want to fight each other. They still had some sort of consensus, but Iron Man, he had his hand behind his back. He couldn't really do much. We could see how he came to believing in the Superhuman Registration Act, looking at prior stories. In Civil War, the only reason why he believed in it is because of something that already happened in the story, so it's already manufactured to go in a way that Mark Miller wanted. It wasn't like looking at his past and seeing what made the most sense. They didn't do that. Civil War had the perfect alley-oop for it to work, but he's not the type of person to have a crash-out arc and almost kill his friends just because they don't agree on accords. That is whack to begin with. But yes, Iron Man isn't like this. Stop promoting this propaganda. And for all of these characters, don't promote this. This is not how they are. And if I did in the past and I said anything like this, call me out on it, because I don't believe that, and sometimes I just be yapping. This entire channel is about the yap. Intellectual yap, whatever that means, if I could even do that. But yeah. Who's possibly the most famous superhero of all time around the world? Actually, you know what? That's kind of a very big question. Let me just limit it. Let me bring it down to like North America. That's Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man as a character, I've talked about him ad nauseum. I'm tired of talking about him. So because of this, I kind of like mix it up a little bit. I'm going to talk about something that I'm less familiar with because I'm going to be honest, I read it a long time ago and I never was in a rush to reread it. And that is Dan Slott's Spider-Man. I'm not going to talk about Zeb Wells. We've talked about him enough. But let's talk about why Dan Slott's run was so divisive to a lot of Spider-Man fans. Now, without going through the broad strokes of why Spider-Verse kind of sucked as an event, why Superior Spider-Man, while a cool idea with good dialogue from like Dr. Octopus as Spider-Man, it kind of sucked as well because all the characters were really stupid. Like seriously, everybody around him acted like NPCs to the point where it's like, is this really entertaining to me when everyone is so freaking stupid? But either way, to talk about some examples that came off the top of my head, Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, I'm pretty sure the all-new, all-different era. And in this era, he acts like a man-child despite being at work. The problem with One More Day, or what was it called? Brand New Day. It's called Brand New Day. Well, after Brand New Day, it felt like his character progression and everything just regressed. He didn't feel like the same character anymore. He felt like how he was supposed to be in like high school or something. And even in high school when he wasn't like that. After becoming Spider-Man again, getting his body back after the Superior Spider-Man incident, he resumes control of Parker Industries. But rather than behaving like somebody who just came back from the dead, you know, trying to like be a man and like deal with all these issues, well, he consistently acts like a teenager running a startup company, not a man managing this high-level tech company, a company that is getting up there with Stark Industries. He was really going up the ranks at this period of time. Regardless of if you actually like this decision or not, at least have Peter be smart about the position that he was in. Use everything to his advantage. But like he was making jokes at board meetings, getting distracted by superhero antics, fighting with his superhero colleagues, on the premises of his actual building. It's like, huh? To repeatedly losing control of his business. He acts stunned. The people believe that he should be responsible despite literal, maybe a decade of saying, with great power comes great responsibility. If you compare that with the JMS run, he's teaching in a high school. He makes tough adult decisions. He has those hard conversations. He deals with and grapples with real world issues. Marriage, death, his role in society, money, May getting older, her finding out a secret identity, dealing with prolonged threats for hours on end. He has no food, no sleep, no drink, but he still has to keep fighting. He was about that life because he made that life for him. You think he wouldn't just rather just go to sleep, go to bed, have a couple Big Macs and just relax? Yes, he would. That's what makes him relatable. But what makes him Spider-Man is that he's able to control those impulses. The impulses to run away from his problems. He fights it head on. Furthermore, we have his relationship with Mary Jane. It's so will they, won't they. They're so immature. Both of them are very emotionally dense around each other. They brush off very meaningful moments. They turn very serious conversations into like jokes or some sort of meta joke or something. And he doesn't even fight for the relationship in general, even though MJ is known to be the love of his life. He's always drawn back to her. You'd think that he would actually come up with some way to get her back. And he does. That's what gets me so mad, is that there are a period of times where they do get together, but then they break up. You know how toxic the relationship should look like from an outsider point of view? Like, how many times will you get in and out of a relationship? At some point, it becomes old. He never really has any time to really learn from past like decisions or mistakes. You feel like he's going in a time loop. Do you know like the little ticks on a clock going back and forth? That's what it feels like with Peter. He doesn't get any new perspective on life after coming back from being erased from existence. He goes back to making impulsive decisions. He never really got the chance to process his trauma of being dead. He shows no deep insight on the purpose of his being, maybe a legacy that he could have. He doesn't go to Miles and talk about what he should prepare or prep him for in the case that he dies. He doesn't talk to his loved ones. He doesn't talk to his friends what they should do if he's not there. There's nothing. It's like Peter hits the reset button on life and just regresses into a less mature version of himself. In contrast, if you look at, like, again, JMS's run, like Back in Black or The Other or whatever JMS story that you want, he's deeply shaken by personal losses. He wants to grow and become more mature, and he does that. When Aunt May gets shot, he doesn't shrug it off. He becomes more focused, more intense, more fiercely protective. That's who he is. In Slot's run, these emotional arcs often get shrugged off by the next arc. You don't really feel any cohesive like step forward. It always feels very loose at how they have Peter act. It's kind of like being bipolar. If you look at Spider-Man's entire set of literature from the 2010s, he's probably the most bipolar man there is. I'm not even kidding you. He becomes the definition of style over substance. If we're gonna pull up the past, like if you look at the night Gwen Stacy dies and she falls and he fails, the guilt haunts him forever, but he never stops trying. In Spider-Man No More, he gives up being Spider-Man, but he returns because he realizes that people need him. He can't just let go of that. The amount of lives that are going to die just because he feels like he shouldn't be Spider-Man, that's not valuable to anybody. That isn't valid. When he fights against Kraven in Kraven's Last Hunt, he doesn't defeat him just through violence, but by enduring the pain, by staying true to who he really is on the inside, his love for Aunt May and Mary Jane. That is central to his identity. If he pushes them away, that is a signifier. That is the ding, 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 that more character growth is going to happen. It's out of protection, out of maybe guilt, out of him feeling some type of way of them being near him. Maybe they might die for being this close to him. It's not out of selfishness. He wants the best for them. And what he thinks of in his head is, from his diagnosis, the only way to ensure their protection. Who is the best superhero child of all time? In my opinion, it's Damian Wayne, but because of one storyline, people are going to disagree with me in the comments. And what storyline is that, you may ask? Pray tell. I don't even know why I said that word. Pray tell? Who says that? But it's Injustice. Now, Damian as a character, he debuted in Grant Morrison's Batman run. In the first arc, Batman and Son, the biological son of Bruce Wayne. We all know this. He's very cocky, very bloodthirsty. He's a killer at the end of the day. He was trained at birth to become the ultimate assassin. This isn't something that automatically goes away just because somebody tells you. That's not the way to go about it. When people hate Damian Wayne for like disrespecting Batman and all those type of things, I'm like, what are you talking about? This is a child who learned from the beginning to be this way. He was conditioned to be this way. Why do you think he would change on a snap of the fingers? Is that how human beings work? Do you like have bad habits and you just say you're not going to do it and you just completely change just like that? No, it takes a conscious effort. It takes time. And what I love about Damian Wayne, out of all the Robins, is that he has the most character progression looking at where he started to where he is now. At his worst, he was very impulsive, he was very cold, he was brutal even, but at the end of the day, there was his father guiding him, trying to push him towards a mental mindscape of having discipline, restraint, to be empathetic towards the people you're fighting. Everyone you're fighting, they have their own story. They have their own lore, bro. It's not like you're fighting an NPC. These are real people with real families, with real problems. You can't just punch them really hard because you're having a bad day. The way you fight has to be very wise. Every hit has to be according to plan. You can't just lash out. And every way you go about a situation, it must be planned so that nothing goes wrong. Because you don't want to end up killing somebody who has to take care of like 4 children by himself. You're going to feel really bad. And if you don't, those kids might even die. Maybe they don't know what to do. Maybe they're very young. It's like all of these back and forth things. But at the end of the day, Damian Wayne is a child trying to be a hero, but he was bred to be a weapon. So everything that he does is despite all of his upbringing. I know a lot of people, either personally or just through the internet or just characters in general, who won't change their bad habits despite people telling them over and over and over again. And it's very commendable seeing Damian Wayne try and try again. If we look at where he is right now, he's in the best position he's ever been in. And yeah, he might have some sort of falling out with Batman, but it's very relatable. You could see why he's thinking the way he is. He wants to retire being Robin and follow in the footsteps of his grandfather. He wants to be a doctor. That is so cool. Like completely going the pacifist route in the MMO. But in Injustice, what I really hate and what a lot of people hate about Damian Wayne, and they try to say that this is all he is. I'm pretty sure Injustice Year 1 or like the beginning of Injustice, whatever it was, he throws Nightwing's Eskrima stick right at Ric Grayson's head. And it kills him. And let's be honest, that was completely lame. He's like second only to, I don't know, to Batman and Cassandra Cain, I guess. But he's one of the best fighters in the DC universe. But rather than show any sort of like remorse or growth or compassion or feeling really bad about what he did, he doubles down on it. He blames Dick, not himself. He leaves Bruce and aligns himself with Superman, despite the fact that Superman just became a dictator on a global scale. And then he becomes Nightwing. Not to honor him, mind you, but to twist and change that mantle into being a pro-regime symbol. He destroys and dismantles Nightwing's legacy and his name so hard that it's really very difficult not to hate him, honestly. He helps enforce Superman's global order through fear, violence, turning on the Bat family. A lot of his actions lead to a lot of heroes that we know and love dying, whether directly or indirectly. And he clashes with his father, consistently mocking him, calling him weak, justifying all these mass executions, controlling the populace, justifying surveillance on a global scale. There is no desire for Bruce's approval and to be a real hero. I don't even know what he wants, a place to fit in. I'm sure Bruce would have let you come back into the fold if you felt really bad about what you did and you tried your best. He would have forgiven you. You are his child. But like absolutely flipping the script and deciding to be with Superman, that just made him think you are dead to him. Even if that's not true, he's saying it verbatim. I'm not going to argue with what the man said. You are his son and now you're basically nothing to him. He would have nothing to do with you. He would rather you weren't even conceived at that point. There's no guilt, no arc, no character growth. Damian doesn't even fully grieve Dick or question Superman at all. If he does, let me know, but from what I've seen, he's very much the biggest hype man of all time. He glazes Superman nonstop to no end. And for what? Like, I'm serious, tell me. He disregards all of Bruce's ideals without a second thought. If you look at main continuity Damian, he just wants to be the best person he can be, so that his father and his brothers can be proud to call him one of their own. That is all he wants. And at the end of the day, I find it very selfish and ignorant for the people in the quote-unquote Batman community to just completely cut him off, even when he's trying so hard. And in my opinion, it all paid off in the end. Every single story, while there might have been some gaps here and there, at the end of the day, he became, in my opinion, what he was always meant to be. He lived up to his full potential. And that is something I can't say about Jason Todd. But yeah, Damian Wayne is actually goated. You heard it here first. My name is blank. The fastest man alive. Who is that character? Who created it? 1, 2, 10. Wally West. You might have been thinking Barry Allen because you watched the show. Normies. No, I'm joking. But Wally West, and Heroes in Crisis. What a character assassination. Now, this can be argued multiple different ways, but if we're going to look at the DC universe as a whole, Batman is the financial and critical heart, I guess, critical acclaim heart of the DC universe. Superman is the literal center of the DC universe. No ifs, ands, or buts. But in my opinion, the Flash is the emotional heart of the DC universe. While it can be argued that Superman, Batman, Green Lantern can be that, in my opinion, that is Wally West Flash. That's Barry Allen Flash. That's even Jay Garrick Flash. I love Jay Garrick more than Barry Allen, sue me. The Flash mantle carries that weight, in my opinion. If we look at the DCAU and Justice League Unlimited, and even like the normal Justice League series, what caused the Justice Lords to crash out and become completely totalitarian over the entire civilian populace of the Earth? What was it? It was the Flash dying. Without the Flash, everyone kind of loses it. He is, in my opinion, the Spider-Man of the DC universe. Well, there's multiple, but he's one of the Spider-Man of the DC universe, and because of that, everyone holds him in such high regard to the fact that if something happened to him, we would all be mad. Like, really. Even the rogues of the Flash, they know that it's not a good idea to kill a Flash because every single superhuman in the community, they would make it their first priority to go after you. Not secondhand, not third hand, you're on the pinky. You're the first thing I see when, okay, let me, I don't even know where I'm going with that, but he was one of the first sidekicks to fully grow up. He was the first legacy hero in DC to surpass his predecessor. After Barry Allen died in Crisis of Infinite Earths, it took years of hard work and training and getting in the right mindset to become a better Flash. At the beginning, he only could run like 700, 750 miles per hour. You know how slow that is? There is something there, I'm not going to spoil it, but he was running slow in his original run when he first became the Flash. If you look at when he was the Kid Flash, he was running to light speed, but after getting rid of certain mental breaks, all of these certain things that were keeping him back, he became the fastest Flash. He became a beloved mentor, friend, husband, and father. Even if we look at character development, he actually outranks Barry, and Barry wants this for him. I'm somebody who loves Barry Allen, but from every single standpoint, Wally outclasses him. Not to say that Wally is the better character, but not to say Barry isn't a good character. Barry has his own place. I love Barry, specifically like with Williamson and how he writes Barry. In particular, this is going to get some flack, but the way Cy Spurrier writes Barry Allen is actually peak. Like, I love the voice that he has for him. Very scientific in the way he speaks about things, while also being very lighthearted, very Silver Agey, but that's not the point. While Wally is a symbol of unity, a symbol of legacy, hope in motion, Heroes in Crisis happens, and Wally, traumatized after all of the things that happened, pre-Flashpoint, post-Flashpoint, losing his family, being stuck in the Speed Force for almost a decade, really, I guess a bit less, maybe like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. He has a breakdown while in Sanctuary. Sanctuary is a place where heroes go to fix their mental health, and he ends up having a traumatic breakdown, exploding in Speed Force energy and killing 13 people, even one of his best friends, Roy Harper Arsenal, and I'm pretty sure he kills Poison Ivy too. But it doesn't stop there. At that point, it's completely fine. He couldn't really do much about that. But it gets worse. He stages the crime scene to make it look like somebody else did it. From my recollection, I'm pretty sure he made it so that Booster Gold and Harley Quinn were responsible, which is like, Booster Gold is crazy. Harley Quinn, I'm perfectly fine with. She deserves the flack. But like, why? He kills a future version of himself to fake a timeline and confuse the investigation. He puts himself as a casualty in the heaps of bodies he killed so that people would just not think that he was the enemy. That is psychotic. And he sends anonymous confessions of guilt while hiding the truth from Batman, Superman, and the Titans. And then at the end of the story, when it was fully revealed, it's not like he was outed for being like unstable. He was outed for being somebody who committed manslaughter and somebody who committed fraud under very false pretenses. And it's like, what are we doing here? It wasn't really about trauma. It was about turning a hopeful character and bending and breaking them to become a plot device. And this is literally Heroes in Crisis in a nutshell. Because Tom King, this is not known that widely, but Tom King didn't even want to use Wally West. Editorial just placed that on him, which is crazy. I don't know who did it. If it was Dan DiDio, that makes sense because that man is a hater of all legacy characters. But DC just betrayed his character, a character that was known for coping through like his family, through perseverance, not murder, not through fraud. They already wrote so many compassionate and relatable stories with Wally West that showed him getting pulled out of the darkness, whether that was through his friends in the Titans, through Linda, through like Jai and Ira West. There was always some sort of character development to keep him from falling to the brink. And the framing of this story, it doesn't give him any real agency. It doesn't give him any sort of healing. He just becomes a symbol of failure. And thankfully, through Flash Forward, through Joshua Williamson, through Jeremy Adams, they retconned the hell out of this story, bro. Every single way they could, from making it so that Reverse Flash had a now hypnotic negative Speed Force ability to make people do things, to like Savitar actually creating a Speed Force explosion where Wally was, like making him a catalyst for a bomb, to bringing back all of the Fallen in a very clever way in the end of Jeremy Adams' run. So they ran circles around this problem, and through like 2-ish years of retcons, they got Wally back on track to where he is right now, which is honestly a very good position. You could really take him anywhere from here, and that is honestly great to see. Better late than never, you know? Sometimes the smallest hero might have the biggest impact, and when that comes to Hank Pym, he has become a fallen icon of sorts. So, Hank Pym, as we know, inventor, visionary, kind of a fragile genius, right? He started off as Ant-Man, became Giant Man, Goliath, Yellow Jacket, kind of to signify different shifts in his career, how he perceives the world, and how he wants to be perceived by others, right? In his early years, we kind of saw him as somebody who had intense pressure that he put upon himself, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of, I guess, mental instability. He had mental issues that weren't exactly diagnosed. As a character, what makes him really special is that he is a gateway to talk about mental health in different ways, a way to talk about bipolar disorder in a way that you can't really talk about with other characters because they made this legitimately canon in the source material. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. It's a way for us to talk about such an important topic that is seen as taboo by many. I guess in the same vein that we could talk about DID with Moon Knight. But as we all know, there's that one thing that stuck with him that is going to haunt his character for the rest of his publication existence. Now, in Avengers 213, I'm pretty sure by Jim Shooter, he slapped his wife, Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp, during a mental breakdown. And while Jim might say, like, this was meant to be a tragic loss of control, the way that it was drawn and executed, there wasn't really any nuance or context for there to be a legitimate impact. Many years later, writers would lean into this moment without offering redemption. Granted, a lot of Hank's best stories are when he's working towards this redemption. If we look at West Coast Avengers, he attempts suicide but is saved by his friends. He is supported by his friends. It's a great lesson that you are not alone. And while he's always trying to atone for his past, there are going to be moments where he really just can't make it there by himself. He slowly rebuilds his life, not as a costume superhero, but as a scientist, as a human being. But the worst part about this is that this character assassination is very repetitive and it gets used in some of Hank's biggest stories. In particular, it happens in the Ultimates. Granted, nobody likes the Ultimate Universe, barring Ultimate Spider-Man, the old one I mean, but they recycled that trauma and they amplified it. They made it so that he brutally beats Janet. He's cruel, he's insecure, he's jealous of Captain America, he sets killer ants on fire. Like, he's written very cowardly. There is no broader commentary. It's just what the Ultimate Universe was. It was spectacle. And that has had a scarring legacy on the Hank Pym Ant-Man character, something that he's never really fully recovered from, and that is a shame, considering all the work in continuity that he's done to prevent himself from becoming a ticking time bomb or a guilt machine. He made himself into the best version that he could possibly be. He's done way too much work for you guys to be talking to him like this, bro. Marvel doubled down and made the worst moment in Hank's life the totality of his identity. He is defined by his worst moments. As a person, when we go through our life, we learn that we cannot define ourselves by our lowest point. If we do that, there is no opportunity to get better. And by completely taking everything out of context and nullifying his greater moments to strive towards being a better person, we're ruining any possible stories that could be told to better people who are dealing with these issues right now. And that is honestly just a shame. The smartest man on the planet tends to make some very arrogant and just stupid mistakes. Reed Richards, one of my favorite characters of all time, he changed from being a fantastic father to just becoming a cold man. Even in the beginning, yeah, there was moments where he was distracted by his tunnel vision. Yeah, there was moments where he was just arrogant, but at the end of the day, he was a loving, caring father who loved his wife, who loved his children, who wanted the best for them. His intellect was grounded in a humanity where he believed that hope was the shining thing that kept mankind on the right path. But unlike characters like Superman, all of that was filtered through an array of science. That's what made him so unique and special. But when we go back to, oh my goodness, I'm stumbling over my words because I hate this storyline so much. Civil War, one of his most infamous turns in everything, right? It's the same stuff that goes with Iron Man applies with Reed. He supports the Superhuman Registration Act. He's basically one of the main architects of the Negative Zone. You have to remember, the Negative Zone is a Fantastic Four element, so obviously if it's going to be in this big event, Reed is going to have the biggest say about it, right? He might not have funded it, but on the scientific end, he was a big part in that construction. He justifies everything through logic and historical precedent. I'm just remembering this man cited like Betham's like utilitarianism in a conversation with Sue. You're going to talk to your wife about utilitarianism and that this is the right way to go. And it wasn't even utilitarian. It was fascist. This man is trying to make a totalitarian empire with Iron Man, and I'm pretty sure even with Hank. And his lack of empathy actually leads to Sue pushing him away. She leaves him because of this cold demeanor. Me, the characters in universe, and fans in general, they were just stunned. How could this happen? Longtime readers were like, is this the same man who would put everything on the line, his life on the line, for the universe and his family? Is this the man who placed freedom over order? Well, in this, it seems like it was the inverse. A man who would cite abstract philosophy over the human condition, the superhero belief that there is a better way. He threw all of that out of the window. And while Jonathan Hickman's run was fantastic, it kind of brought this like Reed Richards is a manipulator type of theme. They brought that to the forefront. He created the Council of Reeds, a multiversal like group of alternate Reed Richards, all of these variants, who worked together to solve everything, right? That was the entire thesis of the run. How can we do all that we can to make things better? But they abandoned their families, claiming that there were quote-unquote inefficiencies. Reed becomes a symbol of cold logic. Increasingly, this man is prioritizing structure over empathy, right? He was rewritten as somebody who was totally at odds with their previous Fantastic Four dynamics. It felt like he was a completely different character, out of touch with humanity, more the maker than Reed Richards' Mr. Fantastic. That was the main version that he was being written as. Maybe it was even the precursor to that character in general. Whatever Mark Miller did in that writer's room, he did not cook. He was not complex or flawed. He was just emotionally stunted and inaccessible. He wasn't somebody that you would want to explore the stars with. He was somebody that you would want to lock up in a room and stay far away from as much as possible, only taking him out to solve those really big mysteries plaguing the cosmos. One of the most underrated legacy characters that should be on everyone's list, and I'm kind of ashamed she wasn't on mine, is Cassandra Cain, Batgirl, my girl. Cassandra Cain is honestly one of my favorite Batman characters. I think I was really into the 1990s era, and she was at the tail end during No Man's Land, one of my favorite Batman storylines of all time. I need to use the washroom, but I'm gonna power through, okay? Let's get this recording done. Anyways, TMI. But either way, in the Batgirl run, she was not trained to speak like most of us are trained to speak, right? But she was trained to read body language, and because of that, if somebody's gonna throw a right hook, she will know that probably 5 seconds before they do. She could see the tense in the muscles before that happens. and certain eye twitches, bleep beep bop blah boop pow. But after killing one target, after her father David Cain made her kill a target, she felt the weight of what death really was. And she ran away. But then Bruce Wayne took her in, right? And she became Batgirl. Not because she really wanted to fight. This was her way of like having a redemption arc. It's like a Damian Wayne situation. Damian and Cassandra really need to be in a book together. Damian and Stephanie Brown already had a good dynamic. I want to see what it's really like to have Damian and Cassandra in a book. DC, make it your priority now, because they're pretty similar in the fact that they were both raised to be an assassin, but they want to be more than that. She refuses to kill no matter what her instincts tell her, since her entire kind of perception of language is through martial arts, through pressure points, through leopard blows, through like, I don't know, taekwondo, all those things, because that's who she really is. She tries extra hard not to kill. She refuses to kill, no matter what her instincts might tell her. She slowly learns how to speak and connect with others, because her father didn't teach her anything about speaking. She was mute for most of her life, but like through her original Batgirl run and stuff like that, she learns words from people like Oracle, who becomes kind of like her mom. Through Batman, who becomes her father, they kind of have joint custody over her, right? She spends more time with Oracle. She lives with her. But Batman, she's where she gets her ideals from. She is who she becomes a better person from. Her idea of what the Bat mantle is her guiding star, is what pushes her to go in the right direction, because if she has nothing, at least she has the Bat to carry her through her darkest moments. She becomes one of Bruce's most trusted allies. She develops a close bond with, of course, the entirety of the Bat family through Young Justice, the Teen Titans. Obviously not all the members, because, you know, she hasn't really interacted with them, but she makes an effort, and that is twice as hard for her since she had to learn how to speak. And she's not like a fluent English speaker. She kind of speaks in like broken English, but eventually she does form proper sentences, and then it seems like there was nothing wrong in the first place. She becomes a symbol for recovery, for trauma, for free will, and finding your own path. You don't have to be defined by what your parents want you to be. Both of her parents are deadly assassins who kill, extort, and steal as much as they can, either for a profit or for their ideals. Cassandra, she becomes the inverse of that. She wants to save as many lives as possible. And that's why when she became a villain, it really stung. In the Robin series by, I'm pretty sure, Adam Beechin, out of nowhere, she becomes a villain and a leader of the League of Assassins. She recruits young people into becoming killers. She uses drugs to brainwash her allies. She fights old friends like Tim Drake and her best friend Stephanie Brown. She shows no remorse, killing indiscriminately, and suddenly, she can speak fluently despite having that struggle for years. No build-up, no internal back and forth within her own psyche. Just bam, she's evil now. And DC never really gave it any room to become satisfying either, like revealing certain things here and there that wasn't told to us in the beginning. They kind of make sense of all of these things happening all at once. They just awkwardly retconned it out of the story by saying she was like drugged by Deathstroke or something like that. A really half-hearted attempt to fix the unnecessary damage that ruined the many years of development that she had. It spat in the face of it, of her entire journey. She chose to run away from violence. She chose to never kill again. She chose to become a new Batgirl and to honor the sanctity of life, to honor the Batman's mission, not to completely throw it away in the name of shock value as was done in this story. She's more than that, and her recent ongoing right now that you could read really shows that. I love that run. There's this one guy in my comments that said that run was trash. I will find who you are. No, I'm joking. But yeah, read up on Cassandra Cain. In my opinion, she's actually the one true successor to the Batman mantle, because out of everybody, she's the one who holds up his ideals to the letter. Bruce gave her this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and she is not going to waste it. She's going to live up to that legend 24/7. It's not a burden, it's a choice. The first boy wonder, he has had a many a names, right? We had Robin, we have Nightwing, we have Batman, we have Agent 37, we have, what else? We have Red X, we have Renegade. There are so many different just titles and identities that he's taken. That was a major plot point in the Grayson storyline. He is all of these things at once. He is so much more than we could possibly imagine his life. Despite being, I don't know, probably late 20s, maybe early 30s max, he's done a lot. He's progressed a lot. He might even be the staple of linear progression, at least visually, right? We can see his progress based on the suit that he is wearing. And we love this as Nightwing fans. I don't want to get too caught up into the entire idea of it, but one important change that did happen that a lot of people didn't like was the Ric Grayson story arc. And I'm not even going to pretend like I read this book. All of the things I'm going to tell you are complete cliff notes because I would not want to waste my time with it. This took IRL almost 3 years of Nightwing's entire publication history. That's like over 36 issues, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, but in general, that is the ballpark of the entire Ric Grayson run. And what really spawned this was in Tom King's Batman run, he got sniped in the head by KG Beast. And through his recovery, we do realize that he lost all of his memories. He had amnesia and decides that instead of recovering his memories or reclaiming his former name, he's just Ric Grayson, a cab driver. And the funny thing about this entire dilemma is that it spawned off of an editor or a writer, somebody not liking the fact that he had a lot of jokes about his first name. He didn't like that people were calling him Dick Grayson, and they made jokes because of that name. It's a thing that's even there in Young Justice, a show that's for kids. It's funny either way because it's not exactly that common in universe. Most of the jokes happen outside in the real world, which is probably why Brother was so pressed about it, but it's not that big of a deal, especially when you consider all of the trade-offs that had to happen for this entire era to stretch out its legs a bit. He cut ties with everyone. Bruce, his father, Barbara, his girlfriend, Damian, his little brother, the Titans, all of his friends, all of the Bat family. He rejected his past, even though basically everyone was telling him who he was. He's very annoyed by the entire superhero idea, just going out in spandex. He's very bland, very detached, nothing really to hold on to. All the charming, introspective, just flawed aspects of what Nightwing was beforehand, it's all out the window for this edgy protagonist who won't even give us a cool suit, at least have some sort of visual for us to like hold on to. There is nothing there. There is no bright spots when it comes to this. As a character, Dick is defined by overcoming his trauma. In this arc, he was defined by it. When he lost his parents, he chose love, and he chose Bruce. He chose to trust Bruce to get, not really revenge, but to get justice. That was his path forward. He left Batman's side, not because of some sort of traumatic situation, not because he wanted to abandon what the Bat symbol and all that ideology meant, but because he wanted to step out of this large shadow that was encompassing him, and he felt like staying here would probably stunt his growth as a person. He saw so many avenues to go through, and he just took a leap of faith, because that's all Nightwing really is. Jumping, knowing that you are a safety net for others. That is who he is. And to see him say in the Ric Grayson run that none of that matters, the fact that he doesn't want to know who he was and he refuses to help with the Bat family, knowing all the crazy stuff they had to deal with, City of Bane, Alfred dying, all of that stuff, he was just out of the picture. And a good chunk of Joker War, he was out as well. Eventually, at the very end of it, he does come back. It just violates the fact that his entire ethos is him being resilient. And it made it worse the new characters that he was hanging out with, like his cabbie girlfriend, the Nightwing cops, whatever. His narration, it was so lifeless. There was nothing for me to hold on to. Even though I really don't like Tom Taylor's Nightwing run, at least I can hold on to the art. At least there's one-on-one like short arcs here and there that are enjoyable at the very least. At least he has very creative single issues, like the one that was like, all of it was just a POV of just like first person, seeing the world through Nightwing's eyes. Another issue in the Get Grayson arc, just one continuous panel. Every time you switch the page, it's just seeing Nightwing scroll across the screen as you would do normally. There was no panels to break up the flow. It was just one continuous splash page showing him go from one area to the other, and it was just very seamless. None of that was there. On top of that, no emotional arc. Just stalling until editorial finally let the story get laid to rest. For nearly 2 years we had this. No interaction with the Bat family, not him fully realizing the death of Alfred. Just a soulless husk of a character that used to be one of DC's finest. The second most popular superhero in comics and my favorite, my GOAT, my Bat GOAT, Batman. he is very much scrutinized by a lot of people on the internet for being a bad father. Now, I don't know why or how this ever came to be in general, especially for main continuity, because all of the quote-unquote bad father moments are when he was purposely out of character, right? A lot of emotional distress, maybe even complete mind control, or just being an alternate reality. A lot of the harsh treatment that he did with Damian Wayne, while completely unnecessary, I could see why he did that when he completely shut him off. He really just lashed out and killed Nightwing, his son. And at this point in time, especially considering the fact that he was probably under, like, Batman's wing for like 2-3 years, you'd think that he would have some sort of control at this point. I would be really angry too, honestly. I think he showed more restraint to Damian than I ever would in Injustice. But in general, he is a makeshift dad that tried his best. Like a lot of parents, they really didn't know how anything would play out. They just took a risk, and they felt like they weren't exactly the best for the job. But yeah, they felt like they had to take one step at a time. He gave all of these kids purpose and love. He tried his best, and not only did he give them better lives, but he allowed himself to grow as a person. Him taking on Dick Grayson for the first time, that was a huge step in his emotional reconciliation. Him talking with Dick and making him his ward allowed him to become a better person in the end. While there might be a lot of like tough love moments, if any of you guys have parents, if any of you guys have colored parents, you would know that this is just a normal thing. Just because a white guy is doing it doesn't mean it's wrong. Let me stop. But yeah, it's exactly that. Tough love. It's love. He might have been hard on them, but he showed up. He was there. He fought alongside them, and at their roughest points, he sat with them. He made sure that they were able to make it through the night. Yeah, there might be some iffy moments with Jason Todd, Red Hood, but we have to remember, Jason's always pushing his hand. How many times are you going to tell somebody this one thing before you have to get the belt? You know what I mean? And the people he was going after, it wasn't exactly like the most irredeemable people. They've shown goodness inside of them. The Joker, a lot of the times, the Joker is outside of Gotham and he had a clean shot, but he's always messing up. If he was more skilled and he actually got his act together, nothing would be wrong. Joker would be sent straight to HE double hockey sticks, but not really. That doesn't even matter because he would just get resurrected at the end of the day. It's a comic book universe. I don't know why people give Batman scrutiny over a universe where people can get easily resurrected, especially when you're somebody as important in the villain hierarchy as Joker. You think the villains wouldn't bring him back even if he was just used as a wild card? Even if we were to look at something like Batman and Robin by Peter Tomasi, we would realize that when Damian paused, let's do a little bit of a spoiler warning, but after Damian died, he went on a rampage. He was completely obsessed with finding the best way possible to resurrect his son, and that led to him doing some very insensitive and mean things, but it was completely understandable. If you lose your son and you were there to possibly stop it, you were right there. It's not like a Jason Todd situation where it blew up. You were in the fight. You could have just locked in a bit better, and that just wouldn't have happened. You could have talked to him beforehand so he wouldn't feel necessary to jump into the fray. In Batman and Robin, he had to go through the 5 stages of grief, and it was honestly one of my favorite Batman storylines of all time. You really got into the psyche of Bruce Wayne, and now he always loved his children, but sometimes he can go about it in a bad way. The way he kind of interacts with people, it can rub off on people the wrong way. He is emotionally stunted at his worst. At his best, he's very open, doing his part to make everybody feel welcome and at home. But then you have like people like Tom King doing some. I can make a whole video on the crazy things that Tom King makes Batman do, but I do like a great portion of his run, so I might be one of the few, but I feel like maybe like 3-4 of his arcs are really strong, so I'm going to leave Tom King to the side. But one thing I can't excuse, Heroes in Crisis, and while Batman isn't exactly a part of it, one thing that really kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and it might have been kind of indirect and some people might see it as irrelevant, but Bruce sends his kids to Sanctuary, a trauma facility, and there wasn't any sign of him trying to support them emotionally. This is complete character assassination because we see time and time again him trying his best to help them. I guess him going to Sanctuary means that he gave up on himself as well, but he would never do this, right? And if there was to be any sort of therapy-like session, all of them would be in the room at the same time. And yeah, he might record it. I don't think he ever would. But if he was to do that, all of them would have a discussion. That is what their therapy session would be. They wouldn't have to record in this weird like room all of their insecurities to get it on tape so they could talk and look at it later. You know what I mean? That was kind of weird. And just in my humble opinion, do you guys think it was perfectly understandable with just Batman sending his kids to therapy? Maybe you think of it in a completely different way than I do, but yeah, different perspectives, different ways of looking at things, and that's completely okay. But yeah, guys, that's all there is for me today. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a new video goes live. And yeah, see you all later. Take care. Deuces.